Hello and welcome, my name is Idris, and today we're looking at a video that was inspired by one of your comments. Someone said that they were experiencing slowdowns inside of ZBrush when using Sculptris Pro mode. And they were feeling slowdowns at around 200K, and I myself have experienced slowdowns at around 2 millions. And when I read the official documentation, they were saying that you would start feeling slowdowns at anywhere between 200k and 3 million points. So in this video, we're going to try and see if we can find ways to work around those issues and try to find ways to work around all the other kinks, the other downsides of Sculptris Pro mode. So the first 3 tips are going to be about speed. Try to find at what performance level you're at, how many active points you start feeling slowdowns. And when you find that you start feeling slowdowns at maybe 200k, maybe 2 million, maybe use that and use it in conjunction with the Decimation Master plugin. Inside the Decimation Master plugin, now we have presets. So if you see that your model is working fine up to 500k, then you can now define this as a preset, and ZBrush Core, not ZBrush Core, did too many ZBrush Core videos, and ZBrush will remember your custom presets. So if you feel that your machine can handle 500k perfectly, but then after that you start feeling slowdowns, then define that as your custom preset and simply hit custom. And since you're using Sculptris Pro mode, you're already dealing with triangles, and you're already using your topology is already made of bigger and smaller triangles. So there's no downside for you to use Decimation Master. So now you have Decimation Master will go over all of your model and try to find where the details are, and try to keep the geometry as high as possible where your details are, and as low as possible where they're not really needed. So it's something that Sculptris Pro does in real time when you sculpt. So if you start to feel your machine slow down, try using Decimation Master to keep everything in check and keep it within what your machine can handle. Also, I found that if you go under Stroke, Sculptris Pro mode, you can untick this combined option. And if you do so, you will have a huge speed benefit. In my experience, I didn't feel any slowdown using turning this combined option off than having Sculptris Pro mode turned off. The downside is that, from what I can understand, combined Sculptris Pro mode will create geometry on the fly. But if you have combined turned on, it will create the geometry and try to blend it in with the existing geometry. So when you're using Sculptris Pro mode with that option turned on, you're creating geometry and you're asking ZBrush to create it and to blend it with what is already there. So you're asking it to do 2 things in real time, and that slows down the process. So turning that option off will give you a huge benefit. The downside is that you may need to smooth down the surface every so often if you feel that it didn't blend properly with the existing geometry. If you look, let's do a demo. Let's turn Sculptris Pro mode off. We're going to use the snake hook, and then we are going to do something like this. Then we're going to turn Sculptris Pro mode on, but with combine turned off. And then we're going to do this. So you can see that we have the benefit of Sculptris Pro mode. And now we're going to turn this combined option on. And now we have this other option. You can see that the option with combine turned off looks nicer. But if we turn the polyframe on, you can see that there's a whole lot more stretching going on, because it tried to pull the geometry as far as possible before creating more geometry. Whereas this combined option kept creating geometry on the fly all the way up to there. So there's a lot more stretching here than there is here. So if we look at it without this turned on, you can see there's a lot of artifacting happening, but it even looks nicer than here. So it's faster and it looks okay. So have a look at that option if you're feeling slowdowns. And the other last tip for you if you're feeling slowdowns is that some brushes, mainly this hard polish brush, however low the point count on my machine, performs always very slowly. Not dreadfully slow, but a lot slower with Sculptris Pro mode turned on. It's a lot slower. And there isn't a lot to benefit from having Sculptris Pro mode turned on when using hard polish. Since hard polish isn't pulling the surface a lot, it isn't changing the geometry a whole lot. You're not really benefiting from creating topology on the fly with hard polish. You're just having a big slowdown. So for some of these brushes, from what I experienced, the hard polish brush, just simply turn it off. There's a button right here. There's a shortcut. So simply turn it off when you don't need it. And there's a huge speed benefit to having that turned off. Okay, so that's all I have for now on speed. So now a few other workarounds. So I've showed you in the demo, still using that fateful dog, that you could use Shift to remove bits of the surface. So you could separate pieces out using Smooth, and that's a very cool trick. It's a very nice tip. But what happens if you want to merge everything back together? Well, that doesn't work using Sculptris Pro mode. So if I pull this back into position, and then I try to do anything with Sculptris Pro mode, it's still going to consider those as two separate pieces. It's never going to create the geometry back together. So if you have a hole like we do in this model here, there's a hole in his mouthpiece. What you would do is you would select this, invert your selection, modify topology, delete hidden, then use the Z modeler brush, hover. I have to, it's very difficult for my French self to say hover. So you have to hover, like Daft Punk song. I think I made that joke already in another video. So hit the left mouse, select bridge two holes, and select to the two outer edges. If I can hit it, and there, ZModeler will create the missing pieces between those two holes. So edge, bridge, two holes. And now you can simply shift to create a nicer topology, a nicer transition. So this is maybe your only option if you're using a model with a hole. But if you can work with a model with no holes, so a watertight model, something that would be perhaps 3D printed, more options are available to you. So we are going to hit close holes, so that mouthpiece is now closed off. So now we have a watertight model. And when we have a watertight model, now a whole new world of possibilities is open to us. Because now we can do pretty much anything dynamesh can do. Because the other option is, of course, to go to dynamesh and redynamesh everything together, and that would merge our two existing pieces, and then we could turn Sculptris Pro mode back on and go back to this, but we would be losing all the benefit of Sculptris Pro we had up to that point. Going to dynamesh and going back to Sculptris Pro doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Once you go out of Sculptris Pro mode, there's no point going back to Sculptris Pro mode. You'd be losing a lot of geometry, and all the small details with a lot of topology would all have to be, you'd have to go very high in dynamesh to keep those small details, while you didn't need a whole lot of points to have them with Sculptris Pro mode. That's the benefit of Sculptris Pro mode. And I'm dragging on, so let's move on. Okay, so now I've moved, hit the mic, I've moved the tail back into position, and now we're going to do something that is brand new inside of ZBrush 2018. We're going to go inside the 3D gizmo, hit customize, and then we're going to hit remesh by union. And right there it has performed a boolean operation. It has merged everything back together, and now if we sculpt it, it's one single piece. And it did not change any of the rest of the model. The only bits that were changed were the pieces that needed to be merged. So we are preserving all the benefit of Sculptris Pro mode. All of that work we've done before up to that point. So we're only changing the bits we need, and that's exactly what we want. So now we can do almost anything that dynamesh can do. So I've showed you that you could merge things together. So that means that all of those insert meshes, for instance, if we wanted, we could now hit draw, customize, remesh by union. And now you can see that we have inserted our mesh, and that it's not one piece because it was masked. Unmask, move, customize, remesh by union. And now, now that's how you work. You unmask things. And now we can use all the insert meshes to our advantage, and we can merge them together. So you could use the polygroup options. You can see that if something is masked, it doesn't get remeshed by union. So if you only want to merge pieces of your model and not others that you want to keep separated, you could just mask them. So now all the insert meshes work, and all you need to make sure is that they are watertight. So some of these human body parts or some other insert meshes may need to be capped off. But that's the only downside. Now we can use all those insert meshes with Sculptris Pro mode, so that's a lot more options for us. But how do you make a hole inside your model using insert meshes? Because that's something you could do. Let's see, insert cylinder is fine. That's something you could do with dynamesh, and that's not something you're supposed to be able to do with Sculptris Pro mode. So now we've made this, and you could use dynamesh, you could use live boolean, but that's not something we want to do. We don't, because live boolean, you'd have to create a new, when you say make boolean mesh, it will create a new subtool. So we don't want to create a new subtool. We want to keep working inside of our subtool. So we're going to hide everything but the piece we want to subtract from. We're going to go under polygroups, group as dynamesh sub. We're going to hit that. Going to unhide the rest, unmask the rest, and even though that group as dynamesh sub says dynamesh, it's not. We're not going to use dynamesh. We're going to hit customize remesh by union. And now we have made a hole, and a lot more than a hole for some reason. Maybe that I had a polygroup. We're gonna group visible. No, we're gonna group visible here. Polyframe. So when you hit group as dynamesh sub, it's going to make your polygroup be white, and that's what we want. We wanted to make a hole. Should have reset that properly. There, that's a hole. Move, remesh by union. I don't know why it starts. That's very, very weird. Let's see if we can fix that. I don't know why it removes a bit, so maybe it's a bit janky still. But if it works, now we've made a hole inside of our Sculptris Pro mesh. You can see that the topology hasn't changed, so that bit of detail we've put earlier is still there. If we want to use Sculptris Pro, we can now use it, and we've made a hole inside of our model. That is something that was not possible to do. Maybe not. Maybe. Yes, I don't think you can pull that off. Just making a hole inside of the Sculptris Pro. So with that option, now you can do that. Now, why are you buggy? Oh yeah, right. Go back to not insert mesh, go back to smooth. Okay, no. Now, what am I doing? We are going to hide this, unhide this, hit Sculptris Pro mode, and we are going to Sculptris Pro this mesh, because it's very possible that, not even sure that's a word, it's possible that the issue is that Boolean operations do not like to do not work very well when there's a huge difference gap in poly counts. Excuse me. So if see here, we fixed it. So that's the issue. Something to keep in mind. If you want to perform, and that's not specific to ZBrush. I think it's just has to do with the math of the thing. If you want to subtract anything in any software, if you want to make Boolean operations, try to keep your poly count about the same. Maybe not the same, but try to keep some. If you want to subtract something with 1,000,000 polygons with a 16 polygon model, it's going to produce issues. The more geometry you have to work with, the better. But you also want to keep, when you're subtracting, you want to keep the model you're subtracting from, you want to keep it higher than the model you're subtracting with. Because that can cause issues. You want to have your main model have more polygons, because sometimes the model will produce issues. So that's why we had bits and parts of the dog disappearing, is that because we didn't have enough geometry inside our Boolean operand. So something to keep in mind, maybe sculpt it a bit, subdivide it a bit. You can also append something like a cube. Then you could subdivide it a bunch of times, move it into position, maybe sculpt it the way you want, and then you can simply hit merge down. And that way, when you create your operation, you'd have more control, because you're using two types of workflow when you're subdividing. So since our main dog is using Sculptris Pro mode, and we wanted to subdivide something, it's perhaps better to do it inside another subtool and then merge it down. So there you go. And so now you can, you don't have to dynamesh anymore. You can do almost all of what you could do with dynamesh inside of Sculptris Pro mode using that remesh by union. And you want to keep using remesh by union and not the other remesh options that are very good as well. But the other options would change most of the topology. So to keep in line with what we want to do with Sculptris Pro mode, remesh by union will only change the bits you need, and all the rest will remain the same. So if you sculpted a scar on the face of your dog, there's no, and you want to keep that high poly count on the scar and have that low poly count on the on the sides, on the thighs, and so on, where you don't have a lot of details. So all the benefits of Sculptris Pro mode. I'm not sure you understood the benefits of Sculptris Pro mode. I keep saying that. So yeah, remesh by union will only change what you need, and that way you can merge pieces together. That's something natively Sculptris Pro mode does not do, but now you can do it in a few clicks. If you have a hole inside your model, if it's not watertight, you have to use ZModeler. That's the only workaround we have for now. And if you see slowdowns, remember those tips. And yeah, I'd like to thank those who've commented, left a comment on these videos, because that gave me something to work on and help you guys. So if you have more questions, if you want to see if you have more issues we could fix, please do leave a comment. like and subscribe if you like this content of if you like the content of this video and you'd like to see more. Please do have a look at our links below. That helps the channel. There's an Amazon link below if you wanted to buy a tablet, but if you didn't want a tablet or you were thinking about buying something on Amazon today, hit that link before you do so, and that will help the channel at no additional cost to you. So thank you if you do it, and I'll see you guys in the next one.